Hi guys, welcome to Cheftis, the leftist cooking show. Today's episode I'll be teaching you how to make vegan human meat. So on today's episode I'm going to attempt to answer a question I'm sure we've all probably had before, which is what do humans taste like and how can I find out legally? So I'm going to be making this in part of a larger meal called pozole, because obviously nobody eats meat just completely on its own. And pozole is a North American dish from Mexico. It was an Aztec dish which was usually made with human meat until colonialists came over and decided that cannibalism was bad. So the human meat is going to be made out of seitan, and for that we will need 140 grams of vital wheat gluten, 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 tablespoon of umami paste and 120 millilitres of vegetable stock. So one thing you need to be aware of before you start cooking is if you can only find dried hominy, which is part of the pozole, then you need to soak that overnight, and that's going to take 8 hours of sitting in cold water, so make sure you do that before you start cooking. After soaking your hominy overnight, you're going to want to boil it for an hour to use it in this dish. So I would recommend starting that first at the same time as making the seitan for the human meat. After draining the hominy that you left soaking all night, put it into a saucepan and add some water, bring it up to the boil and then let it simmer for 1 hour. So as I said previously, you're going to want to make your vegan human meat out of seitan, so you'll need 140 grams of the vital wheat gluten, 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, 1 tablespoon of umami paste. You could just use tomato puree, but I've gone for umami paste, which is basically just tomato puree but has got a few other things and stuff in it. And then 120 millilitres of stock. Now you're going to want to make your stock but then cool it down before you do this, otherwise you'll end up boiling your hands. Luckily for me, I was a bit too socially anxious about going on film, so it gave me plenty of time for this to cool down. After you've added all that, you're going to want to get your hands in there and then mix it all up, and you're going to treat it like a dough. So once it's all mixed and incorporated, then you'll knead it for about 5 minutes. After kneading your seitan for a little while until it looks like this, you're going to want to leave it to settle for 5 minutes. In the meantime, you're going to be able to make your stock that you're going to cook the seitan in. So to make the stock for your seitan, you're going to want 1 litre of vegetable stock. Also, while we're here, the hominy will probably dry out, so just add some more water to it as and when. 500 millilitres of water. Spill it everywhere. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, or lumps if like mine yours is dried out, 80 millilitres of soy sauce, and lastly 10 grams of chicken seasoning. So bring your stock up to a boil and then turn it down until it is a simmer, and then add your human meat and spill the stock everywhere. Leave your human meat to simmer in the stock for 1 hour and do not let it boil. So far in this recipe you're probably wondering what makes this human meat and not regular meat like you normally get with seitan. So I've done quite a lot of research into what makes human meat taste like human meat and how it is similar to other types of meat. So if you listen to William Seabrook, who went to an African tribe in the 1930s and tried some human meat there, so he claims, he says that it tasted a bit like veal, not quite fully beef but veal. So to make that in the seitan, I've added the umami paste, which gives it more of a sort of tomatoey beefy sort of flavour, and with that I've made a faux pork stock to boil that in to get a mixture of beef and pork, because pork is what people normally say that the human meat tastes like. And then for good measure we've chucked in some chicken spice as well, because it's not going to taste exactly like pork and beef mixed together. After simmering your hominy for 1 hour, you're going to want to strain it and then put it aside. So not only are we going to make the meaty part of the human meat, but we're also going to make a layer of fat and a layer of skin. So this next part, I'm going to show you how to make the fat for your human meat. So to make the human fat to go with your human meat, you need 115 grams of white rice flour, 4 tablespoons of arrowroot, 200 millilitres of coconut milk, 120 millilitres of water, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so this is the fat that you're going to make. Obviously, get it all in your saucepan, turn the hob on, and give it a mix. So this is going to start off pretty wet for a while, and it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster of emotions. So it's going to start off wet like this. There's going to be a few lumps in there though, so you just keep mixing it for a while. And then you'll find, as you're mixing more, you'll find more lumps, and then you're going to be like, what have I done wrong? Have I messed this up? This isn't meant to be lumpy. And then you'll keep mixing, and then it's just going to get lumpier and lumpier, and then you're going to start questioning yourself as a chef, and you're going to wonder if this is the right thing to be doing with your time right now. But persevere, because eventually it's all just going to lump together and it's going to turn into a big ball of delicious fat. Okay, so this is what the fat looks like afterwards, and as you can see, it has thickened up quite a lot. So also we have just finished simmering the seitan. You're going to want to keep hold of the stock for the rest of the recipe. Next you will need to put the oven on, because we're going to put the seitan and the fat and the skin together in a pan and then cook it in the oven. Okay, so after your human fat has finished thickening up, we're going to get the human skin ready. For that, we're going to go with spring roll rice paper. The way this works is it comes in discs like this. We're going to run it under a tap, put it in a baking tray greased with olive oil, layer the paper down, put the fat on the top, put the seitan on top of the fat, and then wrap it up. So we'll rinse this first. Rinse it under some warm water. Until it's sort of a bit pliable. It should be really nice and soft. But you've got to work quickly with this stuff as well. There we go. So it's a bit softer now. Put down the olive oil. Then place the skin in the baking tray. And we'll do that a few more times. Put a layer of olive oil in between the layers of skin as well. Here we have the fat and the skin. Next thing we need to do is get the seitan and put it in the fat and then wrap it around with the skin. After preheating the oven to 220 degrees Celsius, put the seitan in and leave it to cook for 20 minutes. So now that your human meat is in the oven for 20 minutes, it's time to start on the pozole. So what we have here is Ancho chilies. I was also supposed to get some Wahio chilies. I don't know how you pronounce it, but now I know how Americans feel pronouncing Worcestershire and Scarborough and anywhere else that's got borough in the name. So I've got the Ancho chilies and just those, and I have chopped off the stems and de-seeded them, and now they are sat in a bowl of boiling hot water for half an hour. So part 2 of the pozole, you need to add 1 whole diced white onion to a stock pot with 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Fry that for 5 to 6 minutes and then add a whole 8 cloves of garlic and saute those for 2 more minutes. So here it is, the vegan human meat. Let's cut it open and have a look at it. Oh, crunchy. There we go. So this meat came from a man called Steve, and he was grass-fed and free range in so much as he didn't have a passport, so he had limited travel. He was a non-smoker, so you can see that there's not too much fat on the meat there. After soaking your chilies for half an hour, make sure they're nice and soft and then add them to a blender. And then with that, you're going to want to add 1/4 of a litre of the water that they were soaking in. And then blend them. Blend your chilies for about a minute until they turn into a paste like this. To your stock pot, add a litre of the stock that you boiled the seitan in. Then add 1 bay leaf, 1/2 tablespoon of cumin and 1/2 tablespoon of oregano. Then add 600 grams of your hominy. Next, cut up and prepare your human meat and then add the whole thing to the stock pot. And lastly, add in 2/3 of the chili paste and taste and see how you find the heat level, and then add more to your taste. After adding the amount of chili that you so desire, leave it to boil for 20 minutes. In the meantime, you can start getting the additions ready for once it's finished cooking. We are going to go with some limes, some coriander and some green cabbage. After 20 minutes of boiling, your pozole is done. So serve it in bowls and then add all of the extras that we mentioned beforehand. So this is it, the final product. As you can see, I put some extras on there that I didn't mention before. So I've also got some sliced radishes, some avocado and some coriander. So let's see how it tastes. And that's how you make pozole. Well, we had a lot of fun tonight, didn't we? We learned a lot as well. We learned that human meat is absolutely delicious, but it's forbidden, so you need to eat the vegan version. And we also learned that it takes me about 4 hours to film and cook. Anyway, tune in next time, like and subscribe and all the YouTube stuff. Good night.